Can everybody hear now? That's a killer.
Hello, hello.
It sounds like we can.
Have we got some comments?
We've got some comments. People can't hear us.
Ah.
Can people hear us now? Let's just try something.
Progress, not perfection, huh?
It says it's working on this. We can hear you now.
Ah, fantastic.
Fantastic. I think it's because of... I do not know.
But it's working.
I can, yes. Okay. Now, sorry, everyone. I know this is a bit of stuffing around. This is the first time that we're trying these live streams. So let me just see if we can do it if I add in this one. All right, we'll try this. Sorry, guys. I swear to God, we'll get into this in a second. I'm just sticking around here with this. 2 seconds. What? That one. All right, let's go with that. That'll do for now. I hope everyone can hear the sound. Just, it's kind of annoying. I didn't want this 2-camera system, but anyway, we're going to roll with it. All right. So if everyone can hear us, just give us one more to see if you can hear us now. And if you can, just drop in the comments where you're from and where you're watching from. I know we've got some international people here. So yeah, it'll be awesome to be able to see where people are commenting and watching from. But nevertheless, I'm excited because we got Craig on the show today. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Good, thank you.
That's good. Now, we put this together last minute. Craig just sat here and watched me try and, dick around with the technology. So I'm excited. I hope you don't mind me saying, we first met when you came through Dayab when I was working there.
Yeah.
And yeah, you were struggling a fair bit at that time. And it's funny because the other day, the other month when the show came on, I knew about the show. I helped with some recruiting.
Okay, yeah.
But I didn't realize that you were going to be on there. And then I was watching it and I saw Craig and I was like, oh, amazing. He's doing well.
Yeah.
So how are you, mate?
Yeah, doing well. But yeah, that was a long time ago. That was a phone call in desperation to you, and well, you were the one that answered the call, and took that on, and bloody that was life changing. So
amazing. So I want to get into it a little bit, but because we've got the live here, we want to make this a little bit interactive. So we got Country Victoria, Narre Warren, Footscray, God's Country. I can't quite see which user that is. But that's good. If anybody has, you can probably see on the graphics, if anybody has some questions or comments as we're going, I want to get into a bit of Craig's story and then talk about the Addicted Australia show and what that was all like. But yeah, if anybody has any comments or questions, drop them below and we'll kind of address them as we're going. We'll do our best. But do you want to give us the 3-minute snapshot of your story?
3-minute snapshot, yeah. I don't know. I suppose, look, drugs and alcohol just played a big part in life for so long. And in the end, there was gambling as well. And, uh, basically, whatever took me out of my reality.
Yeah.
I looked for and just lived in that state. And I don't know, I suppose things just got progressively worse and worse. And rock bottom, just keep getting found. And I stopped and started a lot, but yeah, there was always some substance or some behavior in my life that was not doing me too well. And when it finally got too much and my marriage split up and I was on my own,
yeah,
I had no idea how to live.
Yeah.
And I went further down.
Yeah.
And it was sort of took me to places that I didn't think were ever possible. And and then reached out. I was actually on holiday in Queensland. I was staying with my best mate, and things were going worse and worse. I went up there to clean up a bit, and I was gone when I got off the plane, and I was gone for the next few weeks, and I could see the writing on the wall. It's funny because I wasn't at rock bottom at that point.
Yeah.
But I knew from where I'd been where it was going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't want to go there again.
Yeah.
And and so
that's interesting. You reckon that you'd already been at rock bottom at another stage before that, and you didn't want to get back there, or?
Yeah, it's like, you always hear people say, rock bottom. You can always find a new one, or you just keep digging until you get to that next one, until the trap door opens.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I wasn't. I was out of control.
Yeah.
But I was at a point where I didn't really care about my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would put myself in. I was sort of, like just little things, like just walking across roads, being out, just putting and risky behavior while I was off my head too, so just a complete lack of care for my life.
Yeah.
And almost wanted something to happen because I didn't want to do it.
Yeah. Interesting. It's funny you say that. I've heard a few people say that before, that they almost like they were trying to get arrested, or they were looking for some kind of event to just pull them up.
Yeah.
Interesting. So the thing that I think is, I don't want to say cool, but I was just saying interesting about 1,000 times, but kind of, interesting about your story is that I remember, like, definitely when I met you, you were definitely like fucked and struggling and all that stuff. But I guess on some level externally in your life, like, you were kind of holding it together, and you probably could have looked at you and gone, you might not have known.
Yeah, well, and that was the thing. Like, I think for so many years I hung on to that functioning alcoholic type story, and it was one of the things, like through rehab and the next year or so too, that I just learned you just drop the functioning term.
Yeah.
And it's an alcoholic and an addict, and that's what I was.
Yeah.
And I am, but in recovery. So, it's like you'd look at my life, and as I said, before, it was when I was really on my own, that's when things really went haywire. But I always had that safety net, that someone to fall back on, and someone looking after me. So I had a job, beautiful wife, long-term career, or was going to work every day, like all that external stuff that you look at. But internally, I was miserable.
Yeah.
And I think, mental health wasn't in a great state, and probably, fighting depression and all that sort of stuff for years, but never knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So you mentioned that you got off the plane, and that was kind of the thing that jolted you. Like, what would you say, was there anything in particular that, kind of led up to that? I know you said it was kind of a series of like little events or something.
Yeah, no, it was a whirlwind few months, because it was as we were sort of settling the divorce and everything, and I got divorce payout, and I thought that money was going to change my life, and I'd be able to set up and start a business. And because I was in hospitality before this, and I thought, that's the way I was going to go. And I remember my brother sitting in my lounge room one day, and he just said to me, "Mate, you don't get this money again.
Wow.
Like you don't get that opportunity again." And something about that stuck with me. And then we go a few months later, and I've got the money, and I thought, right, I'm going to Queensland, and I'm going to clean up, and I'm just going to get my head together, and I'm going to come back. And I was, and actually, this keeps getting further down, but I for the first time, I was working somewhere at the time, and I slept in, but I had gastro, and well, that's what I told him 2 weeks before. The classic story is I sleep in, but then
your grandma died 35 times.
That's it. Yeah, all those excuses. But this day I woke up at 10 o'clock, and I looked at my phone, and there was all the missed calls, all the everything. I was supposed to be at work at probably six o'clock, I think.
Yeah.
And my solution was just to turn my phone off.
Wow.
And 3 days I didn't turn my phone off, no contact with work, no contact anything, and I just never showed up again.
Yeah.
And so that was this start of reliability. Like I'd held jobs, I'd held all this stuff, and through all the worst of my stuff, I went to work the next day. Like I went through, and this was just everything deteriorating. And then I left that job. Then I got the payout, and I was going to see my best mate up in Queensland, and I stayed with them for a couple of weeks, and that was my plan, to clear my head and go. But yeah, because that had happened with work, I then was spiraling, and like at this stage, I was drinking and smoking, and from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, and in the middle of the night when I woke up, and just out of control. And and so I got to Queensland. Then I started to hit the casino in Queensland, and I could just see like this money was just going. And I was in a state where, as I said, like, I was out late at night, crossing roads, trying to get in fights, trying to do stuff that was just to get myself into trouble.
Yeah.
And then it hit, and I got home, and my mate said to me, "Mate, can't have you here." And I'm like, "Yeah, I get it." But the night before, we were in the lounge room, and we were having a drink, and I was standing around, and we were having this conversation, and I just stopped, and I said to him, "I'm going to rehab."
Yep. Wow.
What? I said, "I'm going to rehab." And then I got in an Uber, and I went to the Gold Coast Hospital. And they were far too long to see me. Like, not that, And I ended up walking out of the waiting room, going to the pub around the corner, staying in with the guy for lock-ins afterwards.
Wow.
And then getting home, and that next morning they said to me, "That's it." And that's when I called you. And ended up going back to Gold Coast Hospital that day. They kept me overnight, sent me home on the Saturday. And that was a dodgy conversation, because I was trying not to let them know the mental state I was in. Like, I was trying not to get locked in a psych ward, but trying to play this game of saying I need help, but like I'm not. And and then anyway, and then they sent me home, and with some Valium to calm me and everything else, and I ended up drinking on that night, and flew back on that. That was the Friday that I stayed overnight in the hospital. The Saturday, I picked up my bags from my mates, and I rung you, and you gave me a bed for the Monday. And the Saturday, I ended up drinking and stuff on that Saturday night. Was on a plane back to Melbourne on the Sunday. Off my head, went home, packed my bag, and I had nothing to do.
Yeah.
So I went to the casino, and I walked out of the casino at about 6:30 Monday morning.
Yeah.
And was down at rehab at 8:30.
It's funny when you describe that backstory, because it was quite a while. Like, how many? I think
5 years ago.
5 years ago. Yeah. So I can't remember all the details, but the thing that I remember about you was that you were just super ready to have this not be your life anymore, and you just jumped into it. So it's funny to hear that you were,
I just, like, I said goodbye to everything. It was like that night, and it was weird with the casino and stuff as well. But it was like that night, it was just, I'm just done with this life. Every time I pick up again, it takes me deeper and darker.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go darker because I wanted to live.
Yeah.
And I knew that the darker would mean that I didn't.
Yeah.
And, you know, my daughter was about to start school the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And I just knew that I didn't want to be that deadbeat dad. I didn't want to be, you know, like, and I wasn't great in those first few years. But since I've been able to be a father, I've been able to be an ex-husband, I've been able to be, you know, like to stand up to the plate. But yeah, I was ready. And I remember having an argument about the first step with Frankie. And he's saying to me,
forgot about Frankie.
and he's saying, he was my counselor in there, and he's saying to me, you will drink again. Like his theory around the first step was like the quick part of the first step is you will drink again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, mate, I'm not. I'm done. Like it's just I'm done, and I can prove that I can't because I've done it in the past that I haven't. That he's gone, no, but you will because you've always gone back to it.
Yeah.
And we had this big argument, but it was a conversation, not an argument. Like it was this big discussion about it all. But yeah, I was just done. Like, I don't know, there's just this internal switch or something. I don't know, this feeling that's just, mate, that's it. I can't fucking do this anymore.
Yeah.
I felt my body giving away, my spirit giving away. And it was, it would have killed me.
Yeah. And so there's a few things that I want to talk about there. And it's really good to see people are saying, you know, that they really relate and all that stuff. So it's cool. So, I want to talk about that first step thing. We'll cover that in a second.
Right.
But like, what is rehab? You know, people always listen or watch this show and they think, you know, what is this mystical rehab? I remember I thought it was going to be going away to kind of like a psych ward. Really, that's how I imagine it in my head. I don't know why. But yeah, like what do you actually do? Now I'm going to be a pest. Can you just try and like face? Yeah.
Okay.
That mic sucks.
All right.
Big time.
Better?
That's better. That's better.
All right, cool.
And I'm just going to fix something on the camera. Keep talking.
Yeah, good. Yeah, what was rehab? That was, I didn't even know what I was in for when I made that call. Didn't know what I was showing up to. But I think in there, what I learned was what addiction is. And it was, for me, it was a big chance to step away from my life for 3 months.
Yeah.
And just to concentrate on me for a little while and get some understanding of me and start to learn how to live without a substance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, was introduced to 12 step through that, which changed my life completely. I'd been a couple of meetings, but ran away for all the usual reasons, the God, the judgment, the I'm not as bad as these people, the, you know, like all that sort of stuff. But I started to understand my story.
Yep.
And I started to, just get that understanding of myself and learn. And the big thing is, learnt what an alcoholic is, learnt what an addict is, learnt what addiction is, and that I can live without it.
Yeah. So, interesting. So with all that 12-step stuff, how are you with it now? Because this is part of why we wanted to do the show. Obviously, as you know, like I've had my own journey with it too. It's been really interesting talking to people who have kind of changed their belief. Some that were like fully against it when they first came and sort of now really vibe with it. And then others that really vibed with it that don't like it, some that never have liked it. But it's a good conversation to have because usually if you're going into some form of recovery or rehab, you're going to meet people, talk about it or whatever. And it's, I think it's one of the problems with it. It's not talked about. People don't know what the fuck it is.
Yep. No, absolutely. And it's that whole anonymous thing. You don't talk about it. It's like,
that's right.
Best rule of Fight Club. But I just sort of, what is like my journey with 12 step. I don't go to meetings anymore.
Yeah.
First 2 years, I was all over it.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be in the position with my recovery that I'm in without it.
Yeah.
But when it was funny, it coincided with when I started to work in the field.
Yeah.
And I was almost around it a lot and I was talking about it and I needed some distance from it. I'd built up some resentments in there as well. And I just found that my life was in a place where it didn't need it. I always knew that it was there if I needed it.
Yeah.
and I keep the foundations. Like I get the JFT sent to me every day. I get that email to.
What's the JFT?
The just for today, the thought for today.
You can tell there's like a separate language.
There is. So for the just for today book from Narcotics Anonymous, and it's just a daily reading, can set an intention for the day, just give you a thought. So I get that sent to me every day.
Yeah.
But as far as meetings, I don't know when the last one I attended. Oh, actually through work, they did one online the other night.
Nice.
So I sat with them during that. But yeah, I just found that I got into a place where recovery was almost too much, and I needed some space for that. And so I needed to create that balance in my life.
Yeah. How did you go with like the philosophies and all that sort of stuff when you first, got introduced to it?
In rehab, I opened my ears and I shut my mouth. Yeah. And that was, as that part of, we were talking about being ready before. Yeah. It was like, for the first time, I'm going to shut up and I'm just going to listen.
Yeah.
And so I did. And so it started to make a lot more sense to me at that point. But the first time I went to 2 or 3 meetings and I was like, this just isn't me. And sitting in a church and sitting in like the God thing, and I left. And then I did a brief stint in Sydney for a little while. Yeah. I was up there for about almost a year. And before I left there, I went back to 12-step.
Yeah.
Was going to 1 meeting a week, thought I was understanding it, came back and stopped.
Wow.
I didn't think I needed it anymore. But yeah, and then it was just, I don't know, I know it's there if I need it. But yeah, the foundations, I was right into it that first 2 years. I was, joint secretary at a meeting. I was in the kitchen at another meeting. I was part of 2 home groups. I was doing 3 or 4 meetings a week. 3-4 hours of my Sunday was 12-step.
Yeah.
But I just got to a point where I think I was hearing a lot of I wasn't getting anything fresh from it.
Yeah.
And like, I like topic meetings. I like meetings that you go to and like, so they shift and, questions and all that sort of stuff, and which keeps it fresh for me. Yeah. The ID meetings, I don't really connect with too well.
Yeah.
Because I find a lot of the time it can be just people telling the stories and I don't get the hope.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the other stuff, and then it just, my life was ticking along all right without it. And as I say, I journal every day.
Yeah.
Since day one of rehab.
Yeah.
Part of that process. And that's the one thing I've not stopped doing. And that's I put 12-step principles in that.
Yeah.
What can I improve? What happened today? It's probably the most important thing to my recovery.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I stop doing that, I'm in trouble.
Yeah. So interesting. No, and it's good to talk about it because, again, I don't know, you just kind of go into rehab and then they introduce you to the 12 steps, or if, like you said, if you go to a 12-step meeting and you haven't gone through a rehab, that's even harder because you don't have no one's there to kind of explain it to you.
Yeah.
They have pamphlets and stuff, but who the fuck reads when you're like on drugs? Maybe some people. But yeah, and it's just very hard. And by the way, just for everyone listening, we have no kind of opinion on it, like whether it's good or bad or whatever. It's just simply sharing people's experience. And we've talked about it on the podcast before, but what about where are you at now with your belief system? I'm always interested to ask this question as well. Do you think that, do you kind of subscribe to that notion that you're an addict and that, you're a addict forever or whatever?
Yeah, it's a weird one. I do, but there's that great saying, my past will remind me, not define me. So
yeah,
but there's just such negative connotations to the word, to it all. You're a fucking, I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic, da 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 da. I'm much more than that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a part of my story, but I reckon that was one of the last things I shared at one of the meetings I stopped going to was. And I stood up there and I was like, Craig, alcoholic. And it's like, but I'm much more than that. And so I just find that there was all this labeling stuff, and I think I need constant reminders that I'm an alcoholic and I'm an addict. And I need reminders that if I go back down that track, things aren't going to go well.
Yeah.
But it's not who I am.
Yeah.
It's a part of who I am. So, if someone says to me, you know, why don't you drink? And well, I've got different ways I answer it, but the truth behind it is that I'm an alcoholic, and once I start, I don't stop, and it's going to have negative connotations for me. It's going to have consequences. Sorry, it's going to has the potential to take me to places that very quickly, that won't take most people.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Maybe it's just the people that I'm talking to, but I'm finding like that more and more people are kind of taking that approach. In some weird ways, I'm not like comparing it. I'm just saying more of like the process of it. And I kind of know because I've been so deep in it for a while, but it's like people are starting to almost like modernize it, the whole recovery thing, which I think is good, you know, because there is a lot of those, like, so much about 12-step programs is so helpful.
Yeah.
But I think there's probably some unhelpful things too. Maybe some of the things that you explained, I definitely have a similar kind of experience and view now. And when I change those things just for me, I found that like my life is just improved. But yeah, it's like people are kind of recognizing that, like what you did on the show, that, you know, we need like a group of other people in the same situation that we can talk to and relate to and all that stuff. It's very helpful. But maybe some of like the old school ways of thinking about it need to evolve and need to change.
Yeah, it's like I push the message to people like through the detox and now the rehab. You know, with the rehab they do meetings, but you know, I push that message a bit. I come from that peer perspective, you know, like, and I'm always, you need some sort of peer connection within your recovery. Yeah. And so if that's 12-step, if that's smart recovery, like I'm a big fan of smart recovery. I did some facilitation and we were running some groups within the detox. And yeah, like I like the theory behind smart recovery because it's looking forwards at the next 7 days. Yeah. Whereas I find, and the thing with 12-step, I don't reckon I'd be in the same position. I know I wouldn't be in the same position I am without having done the 4th step. Yeah, 100%. Exactly. I agree so much. Yeah. But it's not, I don't need it every day, every week, you know, I've found my balance. Yeah. But it's only going through the process that I've found that balance. And so, yeah, went hard that first couple of years, set the foundations, did all the stuff they told me to do in rehab. Then I've sourced opinion and I don't do it alone. I don't live my life alone. I make informed decision these days. I talk to people and, you know, and then I make my own opinion from it. Yeah. So, yeah, or, you know, and then there's other connections, you know, men's sheds, you know, other groups, whatever it is. I'm just a big the peer group that we run on the show, like any sort of peer groups. There's lots of organizations, you know, the Access Health Manual, like they're all doing peer stuff. And I think there's so much benefit in it. 100%. And that's why rehab worked for me as well. 100%. Because it was because of that peer connection from the workers. So I'm just looking here. It's really interesting that you say that. I've had such a similar experience. So we've got one up on screen. So people are just commenting. So sorry, I'm not like looking at it. No, that's cool. And again, everybody, this is the first time we're doing this. So it's a bit hectic. I was down at Officeworks just before trying to get cables and shit. I think there's a bit of an echo. Sorry about that. But we've got a really interesting comment agreeing with you. I agree. I hate that saying once an addict, always an addict doesn't define me. And it actually makes me angry to hear people say that. It just sits badly in my mind. And I've found the same thing, exactly the same as you actually. And I probably was like a bit longer. I just kind of went down the rabbit hole with it. And really, I tell people all the time, like doing 12-step meetings, it's why I'm where I am today. You know, I don't think I could have done it without it because there was just so much support. The steps that you do in there, so that everyone knows it's not just like you just go, well, you can do whatever you want, but if you choose, you can actually go and do like, it's almost like self-help, self-development, and then all the self-help and self-development that I've done, a lot of the stuff that's in the 12-step is like people sell to, you know. So
there's so there's all that, and you do all that, like the 4-step, like what you said. It's amazing. You get to understand like the inner workings of you and all that stuff. But just from like a belief system structure, continually repeating to myself that I'm an addict and, you know, or I'm an alcoholic and all this, and that, you know, if I don't keep up this furiosity in my recovery 24/7, that this existential thing is going to like get me from nowhere and bring me down. And for me, I just have found over the last couple of years that just really trying to remove that belief system from my mind has actually helped me just to kind of improve my feeling of worthwhile, like how I operate. It's really interesting.
Yeah. And I think with steps 10, 11, 12, where they call the maintenance steps.
Yeah.
I think I'm still doing those. So in some ways I'm still doing the program.
Yeah.
But yeah, that constant reminder that everything, and like anything, you know, you go in, you do the groundwork. Sometimes you want to keep doing refresher courses.
That's right.
You know, it's always there for a refresher, but I feel like I've done that work. That
leads nicely into a question.
Okay.
So I'll throw this one over to you. And we've got Connie. So it's meant to be, what advice can you give about maintaining a healthy balance in recovery?
Stay aware of where you're at.
Yeah.
I think is the biggest one. And like, that's where I mentioned my journal. Because it's one thing to walk away, but if you're not, you need to reflect. Are things going positively, or have things sort of going in a negative direction? Or, you know, do I need to restrike the balance? Do I need, do I need to start going to something again, some sort of support group again? Or, you know, so that just that self-awareness around where you're at at all times.
100%. No, it's really good. So how do you do that? Do you have people around you that you can talk to, or?
Yeah. I've sort of got different people for different stuff, you know, like I've got a fairly large network around me. I just think over the course of my life, I've met so many people through different jobs, through different everything. And, but it's that journal where I can't bullshit to myself.
Yeah.
And so what I notice, if there's a recurring theme over 2 days, over 2 weeks, over 2 months, I need to take action on that.
Yeah.
And if I don't take the action, then I'm going to end up in the shit.
Yeah.
Or I'm just going to stay miserable.
Yeah.
So that's where my awareness comes from where I'm traveling. And then if there is something going on, if it's depending on what part of my life it is, I know who I can go to and talk to. But I talk to more than one person.
Yeah, that's right. Good.
So like it's sort of, I do have a relationship specialist. I do have like that sort of stuff. Like if things aren't going well at work, I have go-to people or whatever. But I think I like to get various opinions.
Yeah.
And then filter that information and make my decisions.
Yeah.
But I know I've got lots of different angles from things, and maybe more of what I need to be aware of, or what might pop up that I need to watch out for.
Yeah.
So it's great to say, no, I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
But it's informed.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference for me these days is pre-recovery, I did things my way.
Yeah.
And I was just reckless.
100%.
And it was my way, and fucking blinkers on 100%. I'm going to fucking prove to the world that I can do this shit my way, and I'm going to bust through the walls.
Yeah.
And I just ended up damaging myself so badly along the way.
Yeah.
I still sort of do that. I still walk my walk, and I'm living my life my way, but I'm doing it informed, and I'm talking to other people as we go. So,
it's so cool to see. And I know people say this stuff all the time, but this is the first time I've seen Craig in probably since you went through the rehab, I would say.
Yep.
And it's funny because I've got this memory of you just like complete, like you really were, you know, that old school saying that they have like a shell of a person.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what Craig was like. Like it just, the life had just been sucked out of you.
It's fucking broken. Like you hear that a lot, but it was just fucking, I was done and broken and empty.
Yeah.
And I was, so in some ways I was maybe at a different rock bottom there, but it was just that emptiness, and it was time to rebuild.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm just going to touch on Connie's question because we've got another cool question here, and don't worry about your spelling, Connie. I'm bordering on, unbelievably stupidly retarded at spelling. Anyway, but yeah, I agree with Craig, because there's so much that we could talk about with that question, but you've got to have some way where you sort of like measure yourself,
Yeah.
because sometimes I'm off my head and I'm just crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't even know. And I need those people to be like, hey, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then other times, like, I'm pretty good. You know what I mean? And I'm just the whole year, I'll just be awesome. But there's got to be like some kind of mechanism that you measure yourself on.
Yeah.
Again, like some 12-step stuff, I suppose I've like modified it. There's different phases as well. In the first kind of year, you're probably in a bit more of a intense phase where you have to really push shit uphill and do some massive amounts of work on yourself. And then, I don't know, I'm just making this up, but then you go into like the next phase, the year after, and you can settle down a little bit or whatever, So
I think that first year though, the hardest thing is maintaining connections. Like, there's Johan Hari's done his talk and I really love it, but
there's layers to that, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah.
And I think connection is huge. And the difficulty, and this is why, again, I was pushing any sort of peer support group for people in those early days, is because there's this, you hear everyone saying, you've got to drop the old environment. You've got to drop the old friends. You've got to drop all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's really fucking great to say. But you leave someone, that leaves you isolated.
Yeah.
And what's the fucking big thing with addiction is isolation. It's going to fucking drag you back quicker than anything else. So that's why I sort of push that. And yeah, you're right. And that's, you can make the new friends and you can make that new network for yourself within there.
Yeah.
And that's the stepping stone. And and then you keep going and you keep building on your recovery from there.
Yeah, that's right. And some other people go, I know lots of people that just kind of do CrossFit or, they just get a community is essential, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got another question there. Hope that helps, Connie. So we'll just answer one more, and then I want to talk about a little bit about the show because Craig's famous.
Please.
So this one's from Liz. Do you believe someone would be able to stay clean and sober without doing the steps?
Yeah, it can happen.
Yeah.
So and here's the thing, like I think, and here's my other thing with 12-step is the emphasis that's placed on time.
Yeah.
There's people that have, I met this guy who's been around for 40 years, had 20 years sober, big life event, relapsed, got another 7 years, another big life event, was back at sort of a year.
Yeah.
Like there's someone that's been around the traps for 40 years, but if he gets up and identifies, then he's supposed to say, I'm 12 months sober. Like that to me is bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, so, and I think so you can get sober without doing the steps. You can
100%.
Definitely. If
at one point in my life, this is where I think it's interesting. I was like, because I was fucked and I just needed something to help me, and it did. I just like was indoctrinated with the 12-step stuff. I've talked about it on other podcasts. I won't bore people, but like I was like of the belief that if you did not do the steps, you were going to die.
Yeah. And look, and that's like, you can get right wrapped up in things, but yeah, no, so the short answer is, I reckon you can definitely, if you're going to meetings, if you're like, if that's part of it, like you don't have to do the steps. I've just found people I've spoken to who have done the steps are generally internally, I think, or like they've got a lot greater understanding of themselves.
100%.
So I encourage people to do the steps.
That's right. And that's what it is, right? Like and that's what I would say to people broadly about recovery is that it's not about the vehicle. It's that you kind of get there, whether it's through Christianity, Buddhism, 12 steps, smart recovery, 90-day rehab, non-90-day rehab, vomit rehab in Thailand, like whatever the fuck you do. Like it's not about that. But I think when you boil it down to the buttery essence, what people have to realize about addiction is that if you're at that point, yes, you're going to have to go through the physical detox, and that's a thing. But once you've done that, to actually recover from it, it's about kind of self-discovery and learning all this internal process, like kind of unwinding yourself and dealing with the underlying issues. And however you do that is great. And that's why the steps work for people, is because essentially what they are is like self-development. You kind of go on a bit of spiritual process. You learn how to like let go of things. You learn, you go and you look at your emotional regulation, your life event history and how that impacted your belief. You know, you do all that stuff in the steps. It might just be in a different sort of language or explained a different way.
And you talk to other people about what's happening for you, you know, and you start to open up instead of internalizing all that stuff and doing that. And, you know, I think it's that life stuff, and it's I drill it through. I used to write it on the top of boards all the time and everything, because it was drilled through my head at rehab. Addiction, 15% chemical, 85% life issues. Sure, 7 days detox, the substance is gone. But the shit still remains.
That's right.
So what do I need to wade through? And what do you need to wade through to stay off it, to stop you coming back to it? And that's the steps. That's starting to learn to deal with those difficult situations, to work through that stuff. And again, it's why it's a process, because it is stop start, because some big shit comes up and it's going to knock you on your ass. And you learn as if you learn from that and then keep moving forwards.
Interesting. Well, you're hitting people right where it counts. There's this comment here, and apologies if you're just coming up as Facebook user. It'll just be the privacy stuff on Facebook, or you're in a group or something. But so I don't know who this is. Wow, your honesty is confronting. I can't ignore the fact Craig's words are words. If I was to say them, would be me being honest about me. I don't know why I can't find that changing point. I'm so frustrated. And then explicit, everybody can read that. So all I would say to that person is just keep pushing on, you know, like that cigarette ad, you know, never give up, giving up. I love that. But, you know, for anyone watching this that's kind of struggling or whatever, you know, I just highly suggest reach out to us, send us a message on Facebook or whatever. We'll get to you. And we can have a chat, because it's too hard to like really give people a turning point live on a broadcast like this, because everything's contextualized. But I guess the thing I would say is that whatever the fucking situation is, you can turn it around. So just know that, you know. And
it's the power of talking. And it sounds fucking Brené Brown, but the power of vulnerability, you know. Like, but it is like when you can start to open up a little bit with people, and you know, you've got to throw some trust out there, and it's not always going to get fucking reciprocated. That's what hurts. But you will, if the more you can talk about this stuff, and find people you can talk to. It's training. Once you start to do it once, you start to realize the benefit, and you do it again and again and again, and it gets that little bit easier. And again, that's where the peer stuff comes in, because you want to be talking to people that know where you're coming from. You know, if I tell here's your label for you. If I tell an addict or an alcoholic, you know, like if I say my head's really fucking busy right now, they get it. You know, I don't have to go into too much. I don't have to fucking explain it. I'm not looking for a solution. I'm not looking for you to solve my problems. I'm just telling you where I'm at. And that just say to that person, just keep trying. Just keep putting that out there. And the more you can, the more you'll start to break down those walls, and you'll find that it gets a little bit easier, and life gets a bit easier, because you don't have to carry so much shit alone.
Awesome. All right. So just a rapid fire. Doesn't matter when you start the 12 steps. Can you be clean and sober for near on a year and then go and do them? 100%. Like there's no rules in NA like in 12-step programs. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do, really. They just have like suggestions, and there's kind of, I guess people have like a common understanding, or so some people won't kind of like mentor you if you're not 100% clean and sober or whatever. Other people will, like whatever. But you can do whatever you want to do. Go through them by yourself, ask someone else, whatever. Just do like the next step forward, positive stuff.
That's it.
It's helpful. So it's good that people have questions about that, and I kind of felt like we turned into a bit of a bit of a 12-step Q&A. But that's why I like to talk to if it's part of people's story. I like to talk to people about it because it's just an unknown for people, and it's such a big thing in the recovery space. So I want to just talk about that quickly because you mentioned the peer support, and we're sort of talking about new ways to talk about recovery and change and all that stuff is really interesting. So you're famous, just, nothing compared to the petty sort of 10 or so people that we've had tuning in here. How's it been after the show? You gotten any role inquiries? No, I'm joking.
No, no, look, it was great to be a part of.
Yep.
And when it hit, I had a few people reach out, from school, from times living in Perth, from all sort of around that just said, like, well done.
Yeah.
Some of them started to share part of their story as well. And talk a little bit about where they'd been. And and I think it's some mates I hadn't seen for a while, ringing up saying that, but it was more around and that was one of my big things was getting conversation started.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stigma and shame that goes with addiction.
Yeah.
And I want to fucking turn that shit around. I want people to know that the only way we start to move forwards is by talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And making it a space where people feel comfortable to talk about it.
Because so much in it, and a couple of things I want to ask you about, but it's funny that you say that, like making it okay to talk about it, because, mental health or some types of mental health like depression and anxiety have kind of become largely okay to talk about, which is really cool.
Let's have a gala ball fundraiser for mental health.
That's right.
But no one wants to own up to their son's in addiction.
That's right. So, and that's the thing I've found is that now there's so many people coming forward that have mental health issues, and they just say it like that because they don't want to be judged, but it's actually addiction issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just think it would be amazing if we could shift that and be able to talk about it so that, people could say, oh no, hey, it's actually this. Yeah. And,
this is what was driving it.
Yeah.
I remember writing something once, and it was in rehab, and it always stuck with me. I don't know if the depression was an excuse for my drinking or the drinking was an excuse for my depression, but either way, that was fucking, the two were having an effect on mental health, And so, but so to get that out there and to start the conversation and to, and I must admit, I put a lot of energy into more supporting the guys that were going through.
Yeah.
And because they're the ones that laid their lives bare and put their stories out there.
So what do you think about that? Because
courage.
Crazy, huh? Because I must admit, I love all that stuff, and I love being like, when I found out that the show was coming out, I just wanted to help and thought it was awesome because I'm like you. I just want the conversation to get started, and was kind of helped recruit for the show. But then I started watching it and I started going, oh, geez, like it's such a big thing. Like not even just like a little news story, but it was like a whole show, like a series. And I was like, oh, is that over the line? But then there's part of me that goes, well, how do you change the stigma of, if you don't talk about it? Like it was just, it was interesting.
And I must say the production company did take really great care.
They were unbelievable.
So
unbelievable.
Like Blackfella Films, they did a really good job because they really worked with the participants as well.
Yeah.
And if there was stuff that was a little bit raw, was maybe going to I think they did a really good job of presenting addiction.
Yeah.
And telling a story.
Yeah.
But they also really protected the participants as well.
Yeah, I agree. Well, obviously I wasn't as close to it as you, but just in that first part when, they just sent me some of the stuff to send out to our networks to try and do some recruiting and stuff, they were unbelievable just at how because I've engaged with a lot of different media over the time now, and they were hands down the best in terms of making sure everything was okay and all that stuff. It was really good.
Yeah. And look, for those guys to have gone through, and like we sit here and we're pretty open about our stories, but to put that into a visual context and put that out to the world, you know, it takes a great deal of courage. But you know, I think all of them just came such a long way through the journey as well.
So what was it like, just as someone being kind of a worker, or like, I don't know the exact title, but yeah, like let's call it a worker.
Well, I mean, I was, and well, this is a whole nother conversation, but for I was, both Oscar and I were the peer workers for the group. And so it was amazing. We knew a couple of them already, but then we started the group up and really got to know them over the course of time. And we only just finished that a week before Christmas. So the filming stopped in May. No, it was due to stop in May, stopped in April. And that's when it actually worked out really well, because I don't know that that group would have continued otherwise. But because we needed to go online to finish it off, all of a sudden it was like, well, let's just keep doing this every week. And we couldn't, like, it was this thing where it's like, you can't just get them in and then just drop them, you know, like either. And I'd build up some real, like, you talk about work boundaries. I don't know, these guys have got my personal number, you know, like, but that's the connection that we made over time. And I hope that if they do struggle, that they will reach out and call. Because now that I'm not there anymore, but you know, for that 12 months, what they got out of that group was connection and was a support network. And so they're now moving forwards, and they're in contact with each other. You know, not everyone attended every week. Some dropped off for varying reasons, you know. But there was a core group as well that were there week in, week out, or most weeks. And they now have themselves a little support network. And to feel that I was able to help facilitate that, then that's awesome. And if that's what helps them move forward, then that's pretty cool.
100%. It's really cool to hear. So if anyone watching we've got a few people watching on all different platforms now. We're on about 8 platforms. I can't believe we can do that. But anyone watching, I'd love for anyone to comment or like it or whatever, and just put some stuff in. If you have any questions about the show, did you see it? Did you watch it? What did you think? All that sort of stuff. But did you find that you were conflicted at all during the show? Like,
in what way?
In terms of like just seeing them go through their process and just knowing that they're on camera, or?
Not really. There was always, I think, and that's the thing, like, I think all my energy went into making sure they were going to be okay when it came to air. Because there was a lot of anxiety building up to that point. But, you know, without knowing what was going to get put out there, I think I just, having met the crew along the way, I always had this feeling that they were going to be looked after. Awesome. And, you know, so yeah, I just thought it was such a brave move. And something that didn't appear on there, there was a breakthrough week where it was just after, well, breakthrough for me. I went in there and I was pretty guarded at first, like with my stuff. I was really like, I'm doing the group and that sort of thing. But I found that I was trying, I wasn't as open as if the cameras hadn't been there, I would have been a lot more open with stuff. But I found myself second guessing what I was saying, or sort of just trying to, this protection thing came up for me. And as much, not just for me, but because part of a peer worker is, you're meeting them where they're at, and you're sharing stories, and you're supporting through that journey, and you do that by meeting at that level, and opening up at that level. But I sort of was going into this thing where I didn't know what was going to come out, and as well, and my daughter's going to see this. There's, she knows 5 years no beer for dad and all that sort of stuff. And she knows what I do for a job. But
yeah,
there's things that it's like, hey, shit, if I say this, is this going to go to the world?
yeah.
And so then Lucas and I, there was only the two of us at the group that night. It was, and we spent an hour and a half talking, and my gambling side of things really surfaced through that. And I just opened up, and from that point forwards, and he noticed a difference, and then the group noticed a difference as well from that step forward, where I started to be a lot more open.
Wow.
And that's where a lot more benefit then came from that. So.
It's funny, isn't it? Like when you come, and again, nowhere near on the scale that you did, but I remember the first time I did media around my story, and did you like get some training or something beforehand?
Before it went to air, yeah, we got some.
That's awesome.
They did media training for us, and
That's great.
So what to expect, how to handle yourself, how to think. And, So as I say, like everything along the track has been really well looked after. It was a hectic time, but
see, that's so good because I when I did mine, again, nowhere near on that level. I couldn't imagine just like having been on a show and like exposing it, but just like a news story, the first couple I did, I remember just like it was such a weird feeling. Like I just felt completely open, like, and just like very vulnerable, and it was funny. Like at that time, I was so involved in the 12-step stuff, and it was at the rehab, and they put a banner like behind me, like a 12-step banner, and then I had all these fucking 12-steppers just smashing me. Like it was like 200 people on like one of those forums. And I just felt so like it took me weeks to, and I didn't sort of do it intentionally or whatever. And it's funny, I don't know, I'd love to get your perspective on this, but I've actually found in this whole process that the people that discriminate against people with addiction the most is actually people in the recovery community.
There's this... Well, that's the anonymous part, isn't it? You don't promote what you're doing, you don't talk about it, that sort of thing. But this is how we've got to normalize it.
Yeah,
it is by talking. It is by taking that secretive part of it out, and just getting up front with it. So I think there's definitely, and you get your different. Everyone has different views as well. So you go to different places, and people have got different views. It's like anything in the world, like you think of I think of it like a footy team. Yeah. And not everyone in that footy team hangs out on the weekend. And does everything on the weekend, but they're there for that common purpose. But it's like, we don't get along, so not going to hang out. And but there's a real push to don't talk about it. Yeah. But this is how we need to get it out there.
Interesting. So people are also really interested, naturally me and you both did that. We wanted to go and work in the alcohol and drug space after going through the experience ourselves, pretty kind of typical stuff. Yeah, but as you said, the peer kind of side of things is a budding kind of space. It's not fully formed, and it's kind of developing, and the show probably did a lot to help with the peer stuff on the treatment side of things as well. So how have you navigated that? Like, where was your decision to go and work in the space, and what's been your journey with it?
So rehab solidified it. It was one of those weird things where I remember thinking in the couple of years before hitting rehab, like in those last couple of years, fuck, if I ever get through this, I've got to, like, I want to help others not get to that point. Yeah. Like or some sort of good had to come from it, or, there was always this thought of like, this is a learning thing, like,
Yeah.
and I don't know, like, yeah. So this somehow I'd like this to help someone.
Yeah.
And then hitting rehab and it all being peer run and peer everything. I just connected with it.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is what I want to do. And it's weird because I did 3 months there and there was the option to do a month. I wouldn't be in the same position I'm in now if I didn't do the 3 months. I think that first month got me straight, got me thinking in a point, but the next 2 months solidified it.
Yeah.
And the next 2 months got me, like, I suppose, as new people started to come through, it was just, helping them a little bit, I suppose, or putting them at ease, sharing the fears that I had at that stage as well. And, I so walked out of rehab in January and was studying at the end of February.
Yeah. Wow.
And then 2 years of study.
So what qualification did you do?
Did diplomas in mental health and AOD.
Yep.
So alcohol and other drugs. We'll stop using the acronyms. Did the 2 diplomas over the next couple of years. Through that, I picked up through placement. I did placement at a youth refuge.
Oh, wow.
And greatest job in the world. They offered me a job through that, which I then took up after I finished study.
Yes.
It was just too much. Having my daughter, every second weekend and stuff, and studying 2 nights a week, working full time. Like, there was a lot to it. And so, then I started to work at the refuge, and then I picked up the job at Turning Point. And have just started. I finished at Turning Point before Christmas, and have just started out at the basin at the Bridge program with the solos.
Yeah,
so,
nice.
It's really cool.
And what do you think needs to change in the peer space? Because at the moment, like, there's definitely a couple of people trying to do it, me included. But there's people are kind of. In the 2 different streams. Private kind of do whatever they want. They are not bound by any sort of quality standards or whatever, which doesn't have anything to do with the peer stuff. But because of that, they can mesh the 2. And most people probably have a lived experience and are open about that, in the private space, as well as having, qualifications too. But in the public space, it's not done like that. It's very much seen as if you're there as a worker with professional qualifications and you have a lived experience, that you don't sort of share that, because they're 2 separate things, which I get as well. And then, we're trying to solidify or professionalize, like, the peer space. Yeah. It's confusing, isn't it?
There's a lot in that. And I think that, like, picked up on the big difference there is between peer and lived experience.
Yeah.
And so my first role at Turning Point was as a peer worker.
Yeah.
And that was the first full-time DHHS funded peer role in Victoria. And then there's been more peer workers to there since. And it's funny because I was part of, out at Shark there, we did the communities of practice on peer work, trying to define what a peer worker is. And so, when organizations want to hire peer workers, they can go, and there's a foundation there for it and stuff. And so that was really great to be part of. It was funny because I was battling this ego thing at the time. Well, when I changed roles at Turning Point and went to one of the started doing group facilitation and counselling.
Yeah.
And people still referred to me as a peer worker, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm a group facilitator with lived experience.
Yeah.
So I'm a lived experience worker. And I think my experience is more organisations are opening up to their workers as lived experience workers, identifying and being able to use that. But the peer role itself is very specific. And the big thing wanted protected was that peers don't, the expectation doesn't change, and they're not just underpaid clinicians.
Yeah.
Like, and so keeping what's expected from a peer worker separate to what clinicians do and all that sort of thing, it was really important to me. And so I didn't want people within the organization looking at me and saying, oh, well, Craig's a peer worker and he's doing all this.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm now a group facilitator with lived experience.
Yeah.
That's a peer role. And I really want that definition to be a part, because I'm so passionate about the peer workforce.
Yeah.
Having had the benefit of it. That's and felt the benefit of it on a personal level as a worker. I want I want it to be well defined, and I want people to know what to expect from a peer worker. And
well, it does a couple of things, and we're doing that as well, like putting trainings and stuff together, because I think what it does is that if we can I can't say that word. If we can separate them, like you're saying, it's really good on a number of levels, because the organisations and the people accessing services are going to get more help themselves, because it's powerful. But it also provides people a clear pathway out of treatment to go, I can do that, and I have to do this kind of training. And I can get there, and maybe that training's only, a few months, instead of, like what you said, having to go and do a whole two-year diploma. And people can still go and do the whole 2-year diploma, but they can get a taste of it first, not have as much responsibility, all that stuff. I think it's so important to do that, like you said.
Those clear pathways through. And you hear people all the time. I get people, how do I become a peer worker? What do I do? How do I do it? Do I need clean time? How much do I need 2 years up? Do I need whatever? And it's like, every organization's got a different expectation.
That's right.
And there's through the injecting center in Richmond, there's people still using as peer workers.
And that's more powerful for the people
Absolutely.
accessing the service than it is to have you or me there, because they, they can relate.
Yeah. And this leads into another discussion about abstinence and harm reduction.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I just sit as far as, if someone's making progress, then that's cool. If their ultimate goal is abstinence, then great. I think and there's that difference between heavy users and addicts and stuff. Like, people will go through life using different substances. I think there's a lot of fear around substances. I think there's the acceptance of alcohol as being, well, it's legal. I find the whole argument really, it gets me going, because there's people that live a life on substances quite happily, and they function and they do the same way they use their substance the same way someone uses alcohol.
This shocks people, but it's true.
It is. Like, and there's people you wouldn't know. Like, if they came clean and said, I've been using heroin for the last 30 years, fucking what? Yeah. But it's true. So there's people that can use this stuff, and don't get me started, the fear around different substances, the media portrayal of stuff, but there's safe levels. I've discovered that I don't have that.
Yeah.
I can't have a substance in me because I don't stop, and it has a detrimental effect on my life. So it took me a long time, took me many years throughout that process before I finally said, all right, I need abstinence.
Yeah.
I did everything I could to control it for many years. I had, months off, this time off, whatever. Again, I learnt the hard way that abstinence has to be my way. There are people that can use substances.
Yeah. I agree with you wholeheartedly. The conversation has to mature, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because the reality is that so many people use drugs and alcohol often, and it's just massive. And by talking about inverted commas recovery. I think we have to change the way we talk about recovery for it to be more inclusive. But yeah, like for it actually, I know so many people that it puts them off getting into recovery because they think, oh, well, I've got to be completely abstinent and I've got to go to rehab for 90 days and I've got to do this and I've got to do that.
We had the biggest debate, like it went for like at the communities of practice for the peer thing. Right? When we were trying to come up with a definition of what a peer worker is, whether or not the word recovery, like a peer worker is someone who is in recovery or a peer worker is someone like, fuck, we went like, it took so long. It was such a process to come up with the definition we came up with that didn't include it in the end.
Good.
Because it's just someone who uses their lived experience.
That's right.
And that's it.
And like you said, you know, there's different, like, I think there is a definition of recovery, and if you're in recovery, you sort of, it's anyone. I think it's like I'm going to butcher it. It's like this guy, David Best, who I know Turning Point, you know, references a lot and stuff as well. But just anyone that's in a general sort of projection of like making their life better, whatever that fucking means, you know, and that's because that's what it is really. Like, but then, there's also like, it's just different services for different purposes. So you can't say like, that you have to be in recovery because someone might not even think about themselves like that. No. They're just a person, you know.
And if you can be reducing the harm that someone's doing, or so if they can be reducing the harm that they're doing to themselves, then you're on the right track. You don't just fucking stop overnight. You don't just take away that stuff. Like, as we said before, there's all this extra life stuff that's going on that it's clearly they're using for a reason. Yeah. And I think, and this was a big part of the program of the show, you know, like that program that those guys did, it doesn't exist. Yeah. It's something that we want to exist. We need to be looking holistically at treating people. It's not just about getting them through detox and taking away the substance. Yeah. It's helping them repair the areas of their lives that need the focus. Yeah. And that's what needs to change. It's all about, okay, stop using. Well, fuck, I've stopped using. Now you've taken away all my one support. Like, how do I cope with this? What do I do?
Yeah, I've seen really interesting models of, like, if we're talking about treatment as well, where they, where they do these kind of trauma-informed practices, and they don't even think about drugs and alcohol. They just start treating the person. Like, they'll come into the drug and alcohol service, but they don't talk to them about stopping. They don't talk to them about anything. The model is they just do these like trauma-informed practices, work on their trauma, and then they kind of do it the other way around. And it sort of like evolves, and, you know, some people will then reduce their using or stop because they don't have stuff driving it anymore.
Yeah,
you know?
The need to use is gone.
That's right.
The reason that they use is gone.
Yeah. No, interesting, mate. So just quickly, if anybody has any kind of final questions about that professional stuff or anything else, drop them in, or any comments or whatever you want to do. We can see them all here on all platforms. What were your 3 big takeaways out of the show, Addicted Australia? For anyone listening, you haven't seen it, SBS, what is it called? On Demand or whatever?
SBS On Demand, yeah.
Yeah. You can go and watch it there. What were your takeaways?
First one was just how brave those guys were putting their lives on the line.
Yep.
Not lives on the line, but putting their lives on show like that. And I think one of the big things is that it showed such a different picture of what addiction is for people, I think. A lot of people commented on the different substances that people were using and saying, they didn't look like a ice user. They didn't look like a drinker. It didn't look like a heroin user. You know, it's, well, this is the reality. This is what's out there. You have this perception. So I think people's views on that have been challenged. And so I hope that's taken away. I hope the value of peer work has come through, and that the benefit of it and what can be achieved with the support and the wraparound care. Yeah. Like that holistic model of care is what we need.
100%.
And so I hope that the conversation can start around that we do start, as you said, we start to treat the externals and the drivers to the addiction, instead of just taking away the substance and the thing that's getting them through. And what was it? What else? Just that I hope we've started a conversation.
Yeah.
That's the big one, and that the conversation started, but and now we just need to keep throwing hopefully more money at it. You know, that there's more funding that comes through to change the way that we're treating addiction.
Yep.
You know, as I've said, and I'll keep saying it, you can't just take away the substance. We need to be opening up the pathways out. And, you know, there's silos in treatment at the moment and I understand why it needs to be done, why it's done that way, as far as homelessness and as far as, you know, mental health and addiction and all these different things, but a better way of working together to get that done. And that's got to be changed by the system.
It's so complex. You're right about the system. We've got a good question here, but yeah, the system, it's frustrating because everybody that I talk to, so everybody that we've had on the show so far, and I spoke to a lady, Rebecca Lang, who's like, you know, like Vada here. She's like the equivalent of the CEO, but the Queensland version.
Yeah.
Everybody that I can think of, you know, everybody says they want things to change, and it's like everybody in the space agrees and means well and does great work, but it's the system, the way that it's all set up, that stops that. Because the thing for everyone to understand, again, we've talked about it quite a bit on the show, but if there's people you know, I just lost my train of thought because I can see comments coming in here. Sorry, everyone. But yeah, like at the fundamental level of where they like fund services, it's set up, which I kind of get as well, but it's set up as like competitive tendering. So what happens is that organizations, to stay alive, they kind of keep things, not like intentionally, I'm making it sound bad on the organizations, but you know, they silo off because they want to keep their funding coming in and keep the people that they have working for them employed and all that stuff. But it creates division, and it's the system.
And that's it. You know, and this is it. People come because there's areas of their lives they need help with, and this one can only treat the addiction. This one can only treat the mental health. Yeah, getting those ones that can get in and the wait lists and everything as well. You know, like the housing. If we can get more work around housing and get people supported through there, and that'd be great. But the more we can take that drive to use away, we'll start to move forwards a lot quicker.
Yeah, love it. So we've got a question here from Connie. You've been a good sport, Connie. Thanks for supporting us through our first live show. She's been asking questions and stuff. It's good.
Good one. Thanks, Connie.
Do you think the show helped you moving forward with your own recovery in any way?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
I had my views challenged on a weekly basis. It got to the point with that group where I was just a part of, like, at first, and that was the whole thing about being peer and going in, was that we're all on the same level. And that's it. But initially someone had to be sort of directing that as well. But by the end of it, I was just in the group with these guys. And so on a weekly basis, had my views challenged, had myself challenged, looking at new worldviews, looking at all sorts of stuff. And I grew as a person through that.
Yeah.
And in essence, that's helped my recovery, and I think that's where my job helps my recovery, because I see decisions that other people make.
Yeah.
And I see the consequences of those decisions. And so it reinforces into me the care that I need to take with the choices that I make each day.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like a living reality check.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I get to see other people's decisions play out and see, as I said, see those consequences. So I sometimes, or have those thoughts, you know, like in recovery, and oh man, I wonder if, you know, like, oh, what about just this weekend? You know, like it's all that sort of stuff. Like it pops up at times, and but it's like I just know that the choices that I need to make have to be to protect my recovery.
Yeah.
So yeah, by all means, the show definitely reinforced that for me on a weekly basis, and yeah.
Awesome, man. Hey, it's been awesome having you on. Really appreciate it. Is there any, you know, we don't do this a lot of the time actually now, but is there anything, I think it's powerful because I just find it amazing, like, that we're at this point, and I feel like we're kind of on the cusp of, you know, as you said, things changing because people like you are talking about it. We're getting such a different range of experiences coming out. There's been a show, you know, all this stuff. So
we're getting platforms to do that through you. So that's
I don't think so. We barely fucking got the technology to work.
Hey, there's eight platforms going there.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, is there anything that you would say for the people listening? I think there's been a couple of people that may be struggling a little bit on this, or definitely interested in the topic. But yeah, there you go. Cheryl said great stuff, Craig.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything that, I don't know?
Oh, Cheryl.
Yeah,
thank you, Cheryl. Yeah. Thanks, Cheryl.
Sheza, as we call her.
Shez.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would say to everyone about it?
About
recovery?
Yep. Just don't give up.
Yeah.
This is like so much pressure is put on this time. It's like, just make it count. And if there's a lapse, if there's a relapse, then fucking speak up about it. Don't get stuck in the shame of thinking that you've failed, or thinking that, you know, I'm never going to get this. I heard these two sayings recently. I failed my way to success.
Yeah.
And a winner is just a loser who had the courage to give it one more go.
Yeah.
You know, and they just stick with me, like, as far as recovery goes, because, and here's the thing, I don't know that this is it for me. I don't know that I never go back to using again, you know, but I know that I can make decisions each day to protect myself from not doing it.
Yeah.
And so if you lapse, if you relapse, just fucking look at why and talk to someone about it and learn why that happened and try to prevent it happening again. But just don't give up, and don't do it in silence or alone.
Yeah. Love it, mate. Well, it's been a great conversation, and this is from a Facebook user. Thanks, guys. Needed to hear this conversation today. I can't go clean 100%. The methods they offer for recovery at present aren't going to work for me, but maybe there is an alternative to the overwhelming idea of rehab and recovery. You guys were brilliant. Congrats. And I couldn't put my phone down. So there you go. It's cool. That's live. I'm sure lots of other people will see this. Thanks everybody for tuning in and watching our first live. This has been completely ad hoc. Like, I got approval for this software last night and I madly worked it out. So just for everyone watching, we're probably going to do most of the podcast interviews, and we're doing a crazy amount of content this year. That's our goal. So
nice.
We're going to do most of these, I think, live, and we'll be interacting. It's going to be hard for a schedule because they're just whenever people are ready. So just look out for them. We'll try and schedule times and stuff like that for the broadcasts. On this show, we do lots of interesting stuff. Today was highly interesting because I was keen to hear about the TV stuff. Sorry if I was a little bit distracted because this is, again, the first time. But, we talk to family members, personal stories, professionals in the space. We're going to try and have some other interesting people that I can't reveal yet. But hopefully it'll be good. I think that we're going to do them live and interactive on all the different platforms moving forward, because it's just really cool to have that live feedback. But you can go and visit us at the podcast as well. One went out today with Beck, who I spoke about before. That's just Real Drug Talk, wherever you get the podcasts. Find us find me on LinkedIn, follow the Facebook page. And most of all, just as Craig said, fucking take care of yourself and don't stop trying. So for now, we're out, but we'll see everybody again soon. Peace. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.